Hey Reddit, I need your advice on a family situation that's been tearing me apart for years. It's a long and complicated story, so buckle up. I grew up in a typical American suburban family, but with a twist. I have an older sister who's always been the golden child. From the moment I was born, it was clear that my parents had a favorite, and it wasn't me. My sister was everything they wanted: beautiful, athletic, and charismatic. She could charm anyone, from new classmates to neighbors, leaving everyone with the impression that she was the embodiment of perfection. And then there was me. I wouldn't say I was average, but compared to my sister, I might as well have been invisible. In my parents' eyes, I was always falling short. They wanted me to look and act like her, and they restricted me from being myself. At an age when most kids are struggling to find themselves, I wasn't even given the luxury of trying. Let me give you some examples of how this played out in our daily lives. When we were kids, my sister was always the star of school plays. She'd get the lead role, and our parents would be front and center, beaming with pride. I remember one year, I got a small speaking part in the school play. I was so excited, thinking this would finally be my chance to make them proud. But on the night of the performance, they were late because my sister had a soccer game. They missed my part entirely and spent the rest of the evening gushing about how well my sister had played in her game. Then there were the family photos. Every year, we'd take a family portrait for our Christmas cards. My sister would always be front and center, with our parents' hands on her shoulders. I'd be off to the side, almost as an afterthought. One year, when I was about 12, I asked if I could stand in the middle for once. My mom laughed it off, saying, "Oh honey, your sister is taller. It just looks better this way." That stung more than I can express. Growing up as the neglected child who stayed in their sister's shadow for the longest time, all I craved was my parents' attention and praise. The slightest mention of positive feedback from them used to make my day. Pathetic, I know, but it was everything to me at the time. My sister didn't make things any easier. She was my bully, and a good one at that. She'd constantly remind me of how I'd never measure up to her, how our parents would never love me as much as they loved her. It was a daily torment that shaped my self-esteem for years to come. I remember one incident vividly. I was 14, and I had just won a local writing contest. I was over the moon, thinking finally I had done something noteworthy. When I told my family at dinner, my sister immediately interrupted, announcing that she had been chosen as the captain of her cheerleading squad. Just like that, my achievement was forgotten. My parents spent the rest of the evening discussing how this would look great on her college applications. My contest win was never mentioned again. As we grew older, the favoritism became even more apparent. When my sister got her driver's license, our parents bought her a brand new car. When it was my turn 2 years later, I was told I could use the old family minivan if I needed to go somewhere. The disparity in treatment was glaring, but whenever I tried to bring it up, I was told I was being oversensitive or jealous. The breaking point came when I completed high school. Despite all the challenges, I managed to graduate as valedictorian. It was the proudest moment of my young life, and I couldn't wait to share it with my parents. I imagined them beaming with pride as I gave my speech, finally seeing me for who I was. But they didn't show up. My sister was hosting a party at our summer house with her friends, and apparently, that was more important than their younger daughter's high school graduation. They gave me several excuses, saying high school graduation wasn't that big of a deal. But to me, it was everything. It was the moment I had worked so hard for, the moment I thought would finally make them proud. I remember standing at the podium, scanning the audience, hoping to see their faces. But the seats I had reserved for them remained empty throughout the ceremony. As I delivered my speech, my voice trembling slightly, I realized that no matter what I achieved, it would never be enough for them. That day, something broke inside me. I realized that no matter what I achieved, it would never be enough for them. So, I made a decision that would change the course of my life. I opted for the college furthest from my home. I applied to schools on the West Coast, as far from Ohio as I could get. When I announced my college choice at dinner one night, my parents were shocked. They had assumed I would go to the same state school my sister had attended. But that's so far away, my mother had protested. How will you manage on your own? It was the first time I can remember them showing any concern for me, but even that was tinged with doubt in my abilities. College was a revelation. For the first time in my life, I was free to be myself. I studied English, my favorite subjects, even though it wasn't acceptable to my parents. They had pushed for me to study business or law, something practical, as they called it. But I stood my ground. I learned to ignore their disapproval and live my life the way I wanted. It was in college that I truly began to flourish. Without the constant comparison to my sister, I discovered my own strengths. I joined the college newspaper and found that I had a talent for journalism. My professors praised my writing, and for once, I felt seen and appreciated for my own merits. It was also in college that I met my now husband. He saw me for who I was, not as someone's sister or daughter, but as me. We met in a general education literature class. He was struggling with an essay, and I offered to help. We ended up talking for hours, not just about the assignment, but about our lives, our dreams, our fears. It was the first time I felt truly heard. Usually, people only got closer to me just to get information about my sister, so the friends I had weren't even real friends. But in college, I got to learn the value of genuine friendships, love, and everything in between. I made friends who liked me for me, not because of or in spite of my family. We'd stay up late studying together, go on road trips during breaks, and support each other through the stress of exams and term papers. When I graduated, surrounded by my friends and my now husband, I didn't bother calling my family. I knew they would cook up another excuse to miss it, and I was right. They didn't come, citing a business trip my father couldn't reschedule, but this time it didn't hurt as much. I had my chosen family around me, people who truly cared about my success. After graduation, I got a job in marketing and moved in with my now husband, who had landed a job at a tech startup. During this time, whenever my parents called me, the news about my sister was the only thing I heard from them. They never cared to ask anything about me, and I never had the energy to tell them about my life. It was like I didn't exist unless they were comparing me unfavorably to my sister. I remember one call particularly well. It was about 6 months after graduation. I had just been promoted to junior manager, a pretty big deal for someone fresh out of college. I was excited and thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would be proud. When my mom called, I eagerly shared my news. There was a pause, and then she said, "Oh, that's nice, dear. Did you hear your sister is expecting? We're going to be grandparents." The rest of the call was all about my sister's pregnancy. My promotion was never mentioned again. As years passed, my career flourished. I climbed the corporate ladder, earning promotions and accolades, but none of it seemed to matter to my family. My sister's smallest achievements were celebrated like national holidays, while my successes were met with indifference or, worse, silence. I tried to maintain a relationship with my family. I really did. I'd call on holidays, send birthday cards, even fly back for the occasional Thanksgiving. But every visit was the same. I'd be sidelined while my sister and her growing family took center stage. My parents doted on her children, my niece and nephew, while barely acknowledging my presence. One Thanksgiving stands out in my memory. I had flown back home, taking time off from a crucial project at work. I thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe we could have a nice family dinner without the usual drama. How wrong I was. The entire evening was spent discussing my sister's recent home renovation and her children's school achievements. When I tried to share about my recent promotion to senior manager, my father cut me off mid-sentence to ask my sister about her plans for Christmas. After a few years, my now husband and I got engaged. We were set to marry later that year. When I broke the news to my family, they surprisingly showed interest in the marriage. For a moment, I dared to hope that things might be changing, but their interest quickly turned to disappointment when they found out that my fiancé was from a normal middle-class family rather than a rich one. They wanted me to find someone like my sister did and get married into a socially high-status family. But honey, my mother had said, her voice dripping with disappointment, don't you think you could do better? Your sister's husband is a surgeon, you know. Surely there must be some nice doctors or lawyers at your company? I was speechless at their suggestion. After all these years, they still couldn't see me for who I was or respect my choices. My sister was the last one to know about my wedding, and she never held back from expressing her distaste towards me and my fiancé. She always spoke to me like I was the dirt beneath her shoes, but I had gotten used to it and was numb to her reactions. A marketing manager? She had sneered when I told her about my fiancé's job. I suppose that's nice. Not everyone can marry a doctor, after all. Despite my family's reaction, we pressed on with our wedding plans. The wedding was planned with the help of my friends and my in-laws. My in-laws were the parents I never had. They treated me like their own and loved me endlessly, which made me cry more than on one occasion. They knew that I struggled with my parents and sister and always reassured me that they would always be there for me. My future in-laws were everything I had ever wanted in parents. They were warm, supportive, and genuinely interested in my life. When I told them about my promotion, they took us out to dinner to celebrate. When I shared my anxieties about the wedding and my family's reaction, they listened without judgment and offered comfort and advice. I remember one conversation with my future mother-in-law that nearly brought me to tears. We were addressing wedding invitations, and I was hesitating over my family's invites. She noticed my distress and asked what was wrong. When I explained the situation, she put down the pen she was holding and took my hands in hers. "Sweetheart," she said, "family is more than blood. It's the people who love and support you, who celebrate your joys and comfort you in your sorrows. We may not have given birth to you, but you are our daughter in every way that matters." Her words meant more to me than I could express. For the first time, I felt like I truly belonged somewhere, that I was valued and loved for who I was, not for how I measured up to someone else's standards. In the end, my parents weren't satisfied with how we'd planned our wedding. It was a simple, small wedding meant to hold just our close friends and family. Both my fiancé and I wanted a minimalistic wedding that could emphasize and represent our love and bond. But my parents wanted me to change the details to fit a bigger crowd with extravagant decorations. They argued that as their daughter, I should have a proper wedding, like my sister had. I was annoyed at their last-minute suggestions and asked them to let the day be about me for once. "This is my wedding," I told them firmly. "We want a small, intimate ceremony with the people who truly care about us. If you can't respect that, then maybe you shouldn't come at all." The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. It was evident that my sister was having a hard time accepting the fact that my wedding day was going to be centered around me. She made sure that I was discouraged every time we met, making snide comments about how a real wedding should be. "Are you sure you want to do it this way?" she'd ask, her voice dripping with false concern. "People might think you can't afford a proper wedding. It's not too late to let mom and dad help, you know." As the wedding day approached, I found myself filled with a mix of excitement and dread. I was thrilled to be marrying the love of my life, but the family drama was casting a shadow over what should have been the happiest day of my life. The week before the wedding was a whirlwind of last-minute preparations. We were running around finalizing details, confirming with vendors, and welcoming out-of-town guests. Through it all, my phone remained suspiciously silent. No calls from my parents asking if I needed help. No messages from my sister wishing me well. The silence was both a relief and a new source of anxiety. The night before the wedding, as we sat in our apartment surrounded by wedding favors and seating charts, my phone finally buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "Your father and I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget to wear the necklace your grandmother left you." No congratulations, no expression of excitement or love. Just a reminder about a family heirloom I had already planned to wear. I went to bed that night with a knot in my stomach, wondering what the next day would bring. Would my family finally see me for who I am? Would they be able to set aside their comparisons and criticisms for just one day and simply be happy for me? Or was I setting myself up for one final, crushing disappointment? Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. Reddit. I'm at a loss. The wedding day disaster and what followed have left me questioning everything. Am I wrong for wanting my parents to be there on my special day? Am I overreacting to years of neglect? I need your honest opinions. Should I continue to fight for a relationship with my family, or is it time to cut ties? I'll post an update soon about what happened on the wedding day and the aftermath. Any advice or support would be greatly appreciated. I feel like I'm at a crossroads, and I'm not sure which path to take. Update 1. Reddit. Thanks for all your support on my last post. Here's the update I promised about my wedding day and its aftermath. The morning of my wedding, I was a mix of excitement and anxiety. As I was getting ready, my mom called. My heart leapt, hoping for some words of love or encouragement. Instead, she delivered a crushing blow. "Honey, we won't be able to make it to the wedding. Your sister's child is having his birthday party today, and you know how important family is to us." I was stunned. My parents were choosing a child's birthday party over their daughter's wedding. When I protested, my mother said, "Don't be selfish, dear. I'm sure you understand. You don't even have children, so these things might not seem important to you." I ended the call, feeling numb. My future mother-in-law, who overheard, immediately comforted me. "Remember," she said, "you have a whole room of people here who love you and are excited to celebrate with you today." I decided then that I wouldn't let my family's absence ruin my day. The ceremony was beautiful, and as I saw my fiancé's face light up when I walked down the aisle, nothing else mattered. My father-in-law stepped in for the father-daughter dance, a gesture that meant the world to me. The reception was full of love and joy, but the empty seats where my family should have been were a constant reminder of their absence. The next morning, I woke to missed calls and messages from my family. My sister had even texted, "Hope you had a nice wedding. Sorry we couldn't make it, but the party was a blast." That was the last straw. I called them, my voice shaking with anger and resolve. "I'm done," I told them. "You've shown me where I stand in this family, and I'm done accepting it. From now on, you're no longer part of my life." Despite their protests, I ended the call and blocked their numbers. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also the most liberating. The weeks since have been challenging. There are moments of doubt and grief, but also a sense of relief. My husband and in-laws have been incredibly supportive. I've started therapy to work through years of emotional neglect. I'm focusing on my marriage and our future together, a future that, for the first time, isn't overshadowed by my family's disapproval. Reddit. Thank you again for your support. It gave me the strength to stand up for myself. I'll update if anything significant happens, but for now, I'm concentrating on healing, and moving forward. Am I the asshole for cutting ties with my family? I don't think so anymore, but I'd still appreciate your thoughts as I navigate this new chapter of my life. Update 2. Reddit. It's been a month since my last update, and things have escalated with my family. Here's what's happened. A week after my last post, my parents showed up unannounced at our apartment. They demanded an explanation for why I'd cut them out of my life. I calmly explained how their years of neglect and their absence at my wedding had hurt me deeply. "We've always loved you," my mother insisted. "Everything we did was because we wanted the best for you." I couldn't believe it. I told them how their favoritism had affected my self-esteem, how I'd spent years thinking I wasn't good enough because of how they treated me. They didn't take it well. My father accused me of being ungrateful, while my mother cried about me breaking her heart. Thankfully, my in-laws arrived and asked my parents to leave. As they left, my mother said, "When you're done with this tantrum, you know where to find us." I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. A few weeks later, I saw a social media post from my sister. It was a photo of her with my old motorcycle. Caption: "Finally got my dream bike. Thanks, Mom and Dad." I was stunned. That bike was mine, bought with my own money after high school graduation. I had left it at my parents' house, planning to bring it to my new home after the wedding. I called my sister, who confirmed our parents had given her the bike. When I confronted my parents, they brushed it off, saying I didn't need it anymore now that I'm married. "Don't be selfish," my father said. "Your sister needs it more than you do." That was the final straw. I told them if they didn't return the bike immediately, I would take legal action. They laughed, saying I couldn't sue my parents. "Watch me," I replied, and hung up. After discussing with my husband, we decided to consult a lawyer. She confirmed we had a case. The motorcycle was my property, purchased with my own money. We've sent a formal letter demanding the return of the motorcycle. If that doesn't work, we're prepared to go to court. I never thought it would come to this, considering legal action against my own parents. But here we are. Reddit. Am I going too far by involving lawyers? Should I let the motorcycle go for the sake of peace, or am I right to stand my ground? I'll update when we hear back from my parents. Any advice or support would be appreciated. This whole situation feels surreal, and I'm struggling to navigate it. Thank you all for your support. It means more than you know. Update 3. Hey Reddit, it's been about 3 months since my last update, and I'm here to share the conclusion of this family drama. A lot has happened, and I want to thank you all for your continued support throughout this difficult journey. First, let me address the legal situation with the motorcycle. After we sent the formal letter demanding its return, my parents initially ignored it. They seemed to think we were bluffing about taking legal action. When our lawyer followed up with a phone call, my father finally responded, but only to dismiss our claims and threaten to disown me if we pursued this further. We decided to file a civil suit. It was a hard decision, but we felt it was necessary to stand our ground. The day we received notice that the suit had been filed was surreal. I never imagined I'd be in a legal battle with my own parents, but here we were. To our surprise, once they realized we were serious, my parents' attitude changed dramatically. They suddenly wanted to talk things out and avoid court. However, their idea of talking things out was to guilt-trip me into dropping the suit. My mother called, crying about how I was tearing the family apart over a silly bike. My father alternated between anger and attempts at manipulation, saying things like, "After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us." I stood firm. I explained that this wasn't just about the motorcycle anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, and acknowledging that they had no right to give away my property. Eventually, faced with the reality of going to court, they agreed to return the motorcycle. However, they insisted on compensating my sister for the gift they had given her. I was fine with this. as long as I got my property back. The day I went to pick up the motorcycle was tense. My sister wasn't there, thankfully, but my parents were cold and distant. As I was preparing to leave, my mother made one last attempt to guilt me. "I hope you're happy now," she said. "You've gotten what you wanted. But at what cost?" I looked at her and replied, "The cost of my self-respect and the realization that I deserve better treatment from my family." Then I rode away on my bike, feeling a mixture of sadness and liberation. This experience has made me realize that it's time for a complete break from my family. It's not a decision I've made lightly, but I believe it's necessary for my mental health and well-being. The constant emotional manipulation, the years of favoritism towards my sister, the disregard for my feelings and achievements, it's all taken a toll on me. I've spent too many years trying to win their approval, only to be constantly disappointed and hurt. My therapist has been invaluable in helping me work through these feelings. She's helped me understand that it's okay to prioritize my own well-being, even if it means distancing myself from toxic family members. She's also helped me recognize the patterns of emotional abuse that I've normalized over the years. I've officially informed my parents of my decision to cut all ties. I sent them a letter explaining my reasons and asking them to respect my wishes for no contact. Their response was predictable, a mixture of guilt-tripping, anger, and attempts to minimize my feelings. But for the first time, I didn't let it affect me. I've realized that their opinion of me doesn't define my worth. My sister, unsurprisingly, has taken our parents aside. She's been posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about ungrateful siblings and the importance of family. I've blocked her on all platforms to avoid the negativity. On the brighter side, my relationship with my husband and in-laws has grown even stronger through this ordeal. They've been my rock, offering unwavering support and love. My mother-in-law has been especially wonderful, always there with a listening ear or a comforting hug when I needed it. My husband and I have been focusing on building our life together, free from the shadow of my family drama. We've been talking about starting our own family, and for the first time, I'm excited about the prospect without worrying about living up to impossible standards or facing constant comparisons. I've also been throwing myself into my work and hobbies. I've taken up painting, something I always wanted to try, but never did because my parents didn't see it as a useful skill. It's been incredibly therapeutic and has helped me rediscover parts of myself that I had suppressed for years. We've been spending a lot of time with friends who have become like family to us. Surrounding ourselves with positive, supportive people has made a world of difference in my outlook on life. Looking back on this whole experience, I can say that while it's been incredibly painful, it's also been transformative. I've learned to stand up for myself, to set boundaries, and to prioritize my own well-being. I've realized that family is not just about blood relations, but about the people who love and support you unconditionally. To those who might be in similar situations, I want to say, it's okay to distance yourself from toxic family members. It's okay to prioritize your mental health and happiness. You deserve love, respect, and support, and sometimes that means creating your own family of choice. I want to thank this community for all your support and advice throughout this journey. Your words of encouragement have meant more to me than you can know. They've given me strength during the toughest moments and helped me believe in myself. As I close this chapter of my life, I'm filled with a sense of hope for the future. Yes, there's sadness for the family relationships I've lost, but there's also excitement for the life I'm building, a life filled with love, respect, and genuine happiness. Thank you all again. While I hope I won't need to post any more updates about family drama, I'm grateful to know that this community is here if I ever need support in the future.